June 30th, 1967, and Lakeside in Queensland hosted the Australian Touring Car Championship, organised by the Queensland Motorsports Club. 15,000 fans were there to see Mustangs, Chevys, Lotus Cortinas, an Alfa and a fleet of Mini Coopers. The variety of cars and engine capacities was amazing. The power of the V8s, the nimble Minis and the Alfa Romeo, and the Lotus prepared Cortina. The Australian Touring Car Championship regulations produced an era of exciting racing, drivers with personality and spectator favourites, where touring cars emerged as the most popular category. Most drivers were successful car yard owners who raced at their own expense, really for the glory of it. They spent up big to try and win, and it became an era of household names. Storman Norm Beechey, Ian Pete Gagan and Peter Magnesium Bones Manton. These weren't the near-standard series production cars that raced at the 500 at Bathurst. These were powerful and quick racing cars. Norm Beechey had set the quickest time in practice. A brand new Mustang arrived for Ian Gagan. It was built by John Shepherd in Sydney and only arrived on Saturday. The championship format was 3 6-lap heats and the final. A 75-mile, 50-lap race for the fastest 20 cars, selected by lap times from the heats. Beechey and Gagan shared the front row. Greg Cusack in the Castrol Mustang with Brian Foley's Mini Cooper on row 2. Peter Manton's Mini and Jim McEwen's Cortina on row 3. Kevin Bartlett's Alfa GTA and the New Zealander Paul Fay's Mustang on row 4. From the start, Norm Beechey powered into the lead, followed by Gagan, McEwen, Foley and Cusack. Bob Jane in the red Mustang was making up places quickly. Around the back of the circuit, the order still Beechey, Gagan, McEwen, Foley, Cusack, Bartlett, Manton, Fay and Jane. Beechey, using his soft Goodyear tyres to their limits, was impressing the crowd with his exuberant style. Norm Beechey had won the Australian Touring Car Championship in 1965 with a Mustang, but changed to the Nova in 1966 to keep ahead of the pack. The tyres of choice were Firestone and Goodyear for the big cars, and Dunlops for the smaller cars. On lap 2, Bob Jane's Mustang was stuck in top, so he retired to the pits. Norm Beechey broke the lap record with 63.3 seconds as he pulled away from the rest of the field. Beechey crosses the start-finish line on the fast-flowing 1.5-mile Lakeside circuit. Gagan with his headlights flashing, and McEwen and Foley the top 4. Beechey was opening up a lead of 1 second per lap over Pete Gagan. Kevin Bartlett was trying to pass Brian Foley's speedy Mini. Norm Beechey had some clutch trouble from lap 6 onwards and was forced to make clutchless shifts. He laps Terry Allen in the red Camaro. Kiwi Paul Fay in the Mustang retired with a broken fuel pump, letting Brian Mitchellmore in the Cortina past. Bartlett and Foley were having a ding-dong scrap for 4th and 5th. After 26 laps, Beechey still held the lead over Gagan. Gagan was busy lapping Jim McEwen's Cortina, which had dropped down the order when his tyres started to fade. The order: Beechey, Gagan, Foley, Manton, Bartlett and Cusack. Bob Jane's Mustang back in the pits. He'd won back-to-back touring car titles in 62 and 63 and repeated the feat in 71 and 72. Bob Jane also recorded 4 straight victories in the Armstrong 500. An ominous sight on lap 39 as Norm lets the tail hang out through the carousel, with smoke pouring off the rear tyre. "500 yards later, on the approach to the Shell Bridge, Beechey slammed into the Armco when the rear tyre blew. Gagan shot by before the dust had a chance to settle. Following him through were Foley, Manton, Bartlett and Cusack. Not everyone was happy that Stormer Norman was out, especially on Repco Hill. The order remained the same over the closing laps, and Gagan went on to win by just 10 seconds. Brian Foley followed him home in the Mini, with fellow BMC driver Peter Manton just 4 seconds behind in third. Kevin Bartlett was 4th in the Alpha, Greg Cusack 5th in the Mustang and Jim McEwen 6th in the Cortina. Many thought that Norm Beechey was the moral victor, but his name doesn't appear in the record books in 1967. Ian Pete Gagan's name does, and that's what counts. 1967 was the 3rd ATCC title for Gagan, adding to those he won in 1964 and 66. He won again in 68 and 69, a 5-time champion. In 1969, the championship was contested over a series of rounds for the first time, and he triumphed by just 1 point from the Porsche of Alan Hamilton. Although he didn't win another title, Gagan was a major player in the championship in the early 1970s. He also won 3 Australian sports car titles, in 63 and 65 in a Lotus 23 and in 1976 in a Porsche. Back at the motel, all the usual suspects joined in the celebration dinner. See if you can spot them. Norm Beechey claimed his final touring car championship in 1970 before announcing his retirement and apparently putting an axe through his helmet. Thankfully, he wasn't wearing it at the time. As a part-time racer and full-time businessman, he could no longer afford the time and money to compete with the newly emerging full-time professionals.